That's not the case. Checked our plates, pulled us over. Hey there everybody, welcome back to the channel. In this week's video, we're in the great state of New York, in the mountains. Yes, New York does have mountains, it's not just skyscrapers. Somehow I found myself out here picking up another Landcruiser, even though the person that we're buying this from told me it was 2 hours from my house. I am now here with a flatbed trailer, a winch, 7 hours away from home, and about to go pick up this lovely gem. I don't know anything about it. I know that it's seen everything but a clean body. It's rusted to hell. So let's get in the truck, back her up, and roll on out. We just drove through some crazy mountain passes, pulling this trailer to where this Landcruiser is. Did a drive-by on it. She looks rough, nice color blue, just like Nora. I've always loved that color. Somewhat of a rare color in the later years of the FJ60. Coming up on the house, load her up on the trailer, get the story on her. First look, I drove 7 hours for this. She's got rust, guys. Go figure. It's a Landcruiser. Comes on the window sticker.
Custom bump.
Nice bumper. She's got all the mud flaps and stuff. One thing I always check is the frame, which isn't that bad, guys. I can't believe that. Look at the rest of the body. It's frame's actually not bad under here. You want to check for these C channels over here. They're not rippled. This thing's pretty rough, guys. It's got some aftermarket seats in it, aftermarket steering wheel. It's a 1987, which is the last year of the FJ60 before going to 62. And I mean, look at this. I mean, it's all hacked all over the place. We got electric windows, it looks like, maybe. I don't know what all that stuff is in there. But yeah, definitely. I mean, the dash isn't in terrible shape. That's cool to see. Let's hope for a V8. No. An old, crusty, tired 2F. With a Weber carburetor that's not covered, so I'm sure it has tons of garbage in there, and that'll be fun to play with. Just a little rough under here, but it looked like on the clock it had 179,000 miles on it, so that's not terrible. It's got a two-piece header, which is probably the SOR header, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool modification there. Sweet. Just investigating the truck. Come on, everybody. This is the first thing you don't do to your FJ60 when you get it. This looks like a kindergarten project. Look at this plaster on the quarters, which obviously you see light here. I mean, these are basically plaster. I mean, this is no sculpture here, guys. Look over here. There's a nice little bee nest there that's coming back to Virginia with me.
Including the wasp, dude.
Yeah, I mean, look at the wasp. We'll name him Frank. But headliner's in good shape. Everything else has screws in it. Kind of not coolest. This tailgate's not terrible. Looks like it's okay. From the bottom, you want to look at the bottom lip here, but obviously more wasps coming out of that little hole. Frank's friends. Getting her nice and tight. It's gonna be a long journey home, so I want to ratchet strap everything front and back, use the winch as a tie down. I also put the truck in 4-wheel drive so it doesn't move around a lot. in gear with the handbrake. She can be bouncy. This thing's gonna be fun to haul. Got another one. Well, we're rolling down the interstate in New York. We're going 10 under the speed limit because these dang Landcruisers are heavy. And we pass this New York State Trooper and immediately pulls out behind us. Classic. Maybe she likes Landcruisers. That's not the case. Checked our plates, pulled us over. Probably the most pleasant experience with a cop, let alone a state trooper, I've ever had. Told me I wasn't allowed to be on the interstate with a truck and trailer, but we pleaded and said we'd rather go this way than go over the mountains because we didn't want to cause any havoc or blow out our brakes with this heavy boat anchor behind us. She let us go, and we're on our way back to some family's home, and then back to Virginia to probably pull this girl all apart because she's a little rough, fellas. She's a little rough. 7 hours and 350 miles later, the blue truck that hasn't moved in 20 years has finally made it from New York to Virginia. From the untrained eye, it looks absolutely amazing, and everybody that was waving to me on the highway, giving me thumbs up about it, they were wrong. Because this thing is trash. Pretty sure the motor might be locked up. There's so much rust in the rear end of this thing and holes in the frame. The interior, it was once a great Chariot inside, but has now been butchered, and nothing in there actually is of any originality. So I'll take you through all that stuff here in a second once we get it off the trailer, which will be a task because it's parked on a hill. We're gonna use the trusty CJ5 and get her pulled off the trailer.
I was born on the Mississippi bluffs in the cold dark winter months. Never worried about having me enough till I saw that river run.
We'll fix that later. Honestly, I have a million other things I should be doing right now, but I'm gonna dive into the motor on this truck and see if we can get it to do something. It started looking at me a little funny, so I figured I would, see if it can make it a little more happy. We got a lot of stuff to do. We're gonna have to be robbing some parts from a parts truck that's over there. First order of business is seeing if I can get it to turn over by hand. Probably gonna pull the spark plug so there's no compression in the hole and see if I can get the motor to turn over like that. If that's not the case, that it's stuck, then we have our work cut out for us. Guys, spark plugs are out, but I can't get the motor to turn. Great. Before I start dousing the cylinders with ATF and any other fluid that I can think of to try to loosen up the motor, we're gonna dive into the spaghetti nest that is the non-existent battery cables. So we're gonna do the right thing and we're gonna run over to the parts truck and grab the just as bad cables off that, hook it up to this to see if we can get the starter to turn the motor over, because it's possible that I just can't get a good grip on the actual V-belts. Well, our new battery cables didn't really actually do anything. So we started working backwards from the battery to the starter. We pulled the starter off the bell housing down here and figured we would install a newer one. I have plenty of those hanging around that I know are good. And while it was off, I figured, hey, we can either put a crowbar on the flywheel there and see if it will turn over, or throw it in fourth gear and rock the truck to see if the flywheel in fact is moving, which will tell us that the motor is not locked up. So let's show you what went down during that little process. Not a lot of movement back there, but that does confirm that the motor is in fact not locked up. Go ahead and slap a starter on there, and we're gonna work from the starter forward to the battery, see if we can get this thing to turn over. But as you saw, it is not locked up, and we don't need to go the ATF route. We got the second-hand starter all reinstalled back into the bell housing, and we're ready to crank over the truck or attempt to. Fortunately, with this truck, When you turn the key, nothing happens. There's no electricity to anything. We're gonna be troubleshooting that, and this is a quick, easy thing to do if you're using your own truck and trying to troubleshoot your starter. You can go ahead and jump your starter directly. So this prong here, you wanna connect to your positive side of your battery, which should be already connected. There is a little tiny tab here, which is either hidden or exposed like that. I have a little alligator clip. We're gonna clip that in. Then what you wanna do is you wanna take this other end of the wire and put it on the positive side of the battery, and this should trip the solenoid and get the truck to turn over. Make sure it's not in gear so you don't get run over. That's a relief. We still have the issue that nothing happens when you turn the key, and pretty much every other wiring in this truck is butched. Shoot, what are we gonna do? Oh, you guys caught me. I'm pulling the wiring harness out of the parts truck. I know, it's a waste of time. That thing's a lost cause, but golly day, the whole wiring harness was cut up. I think somebody stole the stereo at one point. I don't know. But if we have any chance of getting that thing to run, I'm gonna do it the correct way. We got a good factory wiring harness back in the 60s. It looks like a world war in here, but I want to show you that we have all the harness lines running, all the original ones. We have a fusible link that did not exist before. The starter lines are all hooked up. Let's go turn the key and hope something good happens. Yes, sir. She's turning over on the key. Well, seeing the motor turn over for the first time under the key has really lit a fire under me, quite literally. Right now we're installing a factory igniter and coil here, just 12 millimeters, and we're gonna plug it into the factory harness that we installed so everything is running as it should. So these are your hot lines, and one of them is for your tack. Then we're gonna move over to this MSD distributor, and we're gonna install a factory Toyota distributor. Again, guys, anybody that's been following knows that I part out a lot of these trucks. If any of these parts are things that you need, I have a ton of this stuff out in storage, so just reach out, let me know what you need, and it could be yours. We're all back to factory spec, factory igniter, factory distributor, and I went ahead off camera and put a factory alternator back on so we can get some charging. Now we just need to throw a battery on because go figure, I killed this one turning it over. We're gonna disconnect the fuel to the carburetor. Who knows what kind of shape this carburetor's in. I'm gonna throw some starting fluid down there and see if this truck does something for the first time in who knows how long. I'm guessing 20 years plus. She's giving me a hard time. She doesn't want to start. Fuel pump still worked. That's pretty cool, but it's kicking out some old fuel, so we had to, actually those lines incinerated into nothing, dust. So we had to disconnect that. Now we're gonna check for spark to make sure that everything I've hooked up is getting a spark. All right, we got spark. Let's see if she'll turn over now. Just really adding to the icing on the cake here. It's starting to rain, just perfect. But in the interim, while the rain is happening, we've pulled the Weber carburetor off with the mana-free aluminum base plate. Fortunately, when you put one of those base plates on, the whole entire mechanism needs to change. So you have to change over the screw pattern, which is these guys. There is a longer peg that goes there. We're gonna go ahead and put a factory carburetor on, factory isolator plate, and factory linkage, because go figure, I guess you guys didn't guess, this is butchered and cut up as well. So gotta add all that stuff in so the pedal can work correctly. We are removing the factory studs for the carburetor from an old manifold that I had. There's a simple way to do this. You take the two nuts that actually would hold the carburetor on, you thread them in one by one next to each other, and then you're gonna take two wrenches and tighten the top nut down on the blower one. Once it's tight, you should be able to take your wrench and it should turn out against that tight nut on top. You got yourself the correct OEM studs for the carburetor. Earlier on in the video, you may have noticed when we turn the 2F over, it would kick back on the starter. This is a sign that the motor is out of time, which would make sense since we replaced the distributor. We had to go ahead and pull the distributor back out, bring the motor to top dead center, and re-put the distributor in. After trying to start this motor several times, and after my frustration had subsided, we finally got some results the very next day. I'm soaking wet, and I can't figure it out. Don't understand. Well, we're back. I mean, literally, it was raining cats and dogs, and I was one of the cats. I was so wet. I mean, literally, I saw Noah's Ark go down the road. It was raining so much. But we're back on the truck. She was out of time, fellas. Put her in time on the distributor, because we did change out the distributor. And she's making some type of noise. Let me show you what's going on here. Oh. That little guy? Don't worry about that little guy.
How about that little fella?
Oh, that little guy? I wouldn't worry about that little guy.
She's smoking pretty good. Look at all that stuff coming out of the exhaust pipe. Just frost. That is hilarious. Sounds good. One blinker works. Nice. We're gonna attempt to move this thing for the first time in, I don't know, 25 years. Let's see how it goes. A success, fellas. I can't kill a Landcruiser. Well, that's gonna be the conclusion of this Mize adventure. As you saw, we got this old 1987 FJ60 running again after almost 25 years. If you're looking for parts to do something similar to your own truck like I just did, feel free to reach out to me through my email, and make sure that you subscribe to the channel so you can see other videos like this one that you just saw. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.